Kelly O'Donnell reporting from the White House for us. Kelly, thank you very much. Appreciate that. So we have a lot more to talk about here this morning coming up for everybody in the Florida stakes being huge for Democrats. 246 delegates up for grabs come March the 15th. And unlike the Republican primary, these delegates will be awarded proportionally to the Democrats. A recent poll out of Florida shows Clinton with a 26-point lead with 10 days to go. Joining me now from Miami is Steve Litz, political reporter at our NBC station, WTVJ, and political analyst and TV host Sean Pittman is with us from Tallahassee. Gentlemen, good morning. It's good to have you with me. Steve, let me start off with you. And Sanders spending most of his time in Michigan, Illinois, Ohio in recent days, so part of the Rust Belt there. Is he making a strong enough play here in Florida, given how the delegates are awarded?
There's a slight presence so far, mostly on television, Thomas. What you can expect to see Bernie Sanders do is hit some of the college campuses here in Florida. We have some of the largest ones in the country. Miami-Dade College, University of Central Florida up in Central Florida, Orlando. Those are huge college campuses, and if Bernie Sanders is looking to make some inroads on Hillary Clinton territory, it's on some of those campuses. It's an uphill battle, Thomas, because as we were talking about Hillary Clinton's special relationship with voters in South Carolina, the same thing goes here in Florida. Hillary Clinton enjoys tremendous support here in Florida, especially from minority voters, African American, as well as Latinos.
And I know on Super Tuesday she had her victory party here after decisive wins. After that primary day, Sean, I know I've seen firsthand the amount of Sanders support and the grassroots efforts that they have here, because they've been speaking through social media and coming to our broadcasting spot here in the Panhandle to show their signs, to show their support. So he's made inroads with that voting bloc. But when it comes to the campaign ground game itself, is it strong enough for a turnout to really be competitive against Clinton?
Well, I think it's very difficult for Senator Sanders in Florida, analogous to South Carolina, I mean, where there's a large African-American population, just over 3 million, or just over 15%, that largely feels like, that we sort of owe Hillary Clinton. We've always supported the Clintons. The only interruption was Barack Obama. So there's a home for her here, and I think it's very, very difficult for Senator Sanders to penetrate that.
So let's talk about, Steve, the way we always look about the state of Florida. I'm here in the Panhandle, and we know the demographics of this, but the I-4 corridor, which includes a large number of Latino voters, which way are Democratic voters there leaning this year? Is that Hillary Clinton country, or does Sanders have inroads?
Well, we're about to find out. Again, as I mentioned, there are college campuses right along that I-4 corridor, which stretches from East Daytona Beach, Orlando, and then over to Tampa. Listen, she has a tremendous machine in place here in Florida and has had for many years. And that I-4 corridor is going to be very important. Thomas, we not only talk about that during the 4-year presidential cycles, but it's also important when it comes to these primaries on both parties. And so the I-4 corridor, mostly Puerto Rican, they lean left. And again, Hillary Clinton has done well for many years in Florida with those minority communities, with the Hispanics. Uphill battle for Bernie Sanders, we're going to see.
Sean, let me ask you about this. The Miami Herald gave Clinton some advice in their endorsement of her. So they wrote, first, she should release the private speeches she has made to Wall Street executives in return for hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's the only way to assure skeptics that she's not saying one thing in public and another thing in private to her wealthy supporters. Do you think that folks in Florida care, Democratic folks care about that? Or is this just something that we in the media are trying to push as a process, in the process of vetting a candidate Clinton?
Well, I certainly think it's something the media is trying to push. I think, the voters in Florida are looking at Bernie Sanders and his ideas that don't seem to be attainable to the voters in Florida. And they're looking at Hillary Clinton being probably the most qualified of a candidate to run for president probably in recent history. And so I think you're going to see that weigh very heavily in Florida, and the issues that the media really is trying to make most important probably will play much later. But on March 15th, they're going to be voting for Hillary Clinton because they like her very much and think she's the most qualified.
Steve, let me give you the last word on this. Do you agree with that as well, especially when it comes to the speeches or the email controversy? Do Democrats is this even hitting their radar?
Slightly. We're talking about transparency issues, right? And so not only is it happening on with Hillary Clinton, of course, it's happening with Donald Trump, and everybody's calling for the New York Times and Donald Trump to release those off-the-record conversations that he had. And so you have the same thing here on the Democratic side. People want to know what was the subject matter of those conversations that she had with those big banking organizations. It's all in the interest of transparency, Thomas, and voters want to see transparent candidates. So it's tweaking a little bit. We're going to hear more noise on it, I'm sure, in the coming days as we get closer to March 15th.
Steve Litz and Sean Pittman. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thomas, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.